So you are here because we have here with Dr. Melissa. Let me introduce her. Dr. Melissa Hofstetter received her PhD in clinical psychology at Fuller Graduate School of Psychology. She's an APA accredited program in Pasadena, California. Her undergraduate degree is in psychology and religious studies from the University of Arizona in Tucson. Practicing with clinical acumen and personal warmth, her diverse clinical background includes campus counseling, intensive outpatient treatment of eating disorders, rehabilitative neuropsychology, veterans issues and trauma, as well as psychoanalytic study at the Wright Institute, Los Angeles. She has served as clinical adjunct faculty at Azusa Pacific University Psychology, doctoral and undergraduate programs, teaching courses in neuroscience, cognitive psychology, personality, family psychology, adult development, general psychology, and management of private practice. She has supervised the clinical work of doctoral psychology students at Fuller Graduate School of Psychology at various levels of their training. She has held membership with the American Psychological Association, the San Gabriel Valley Psychological Association, and the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapies. Dr. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I love this diocese. You all are so invested in people's well-being. It gives me such encouragement and is such an inspiration to me. So thank you for being who you are. So we are here to talk about resilience and surviving and embracing life's daily crises and struggles. We all know something about that, don't we? So there was a poll that was done just this last year where data was collected in April. So they polled about 2,200 people. They tried to make it a representative sample to kind of understand what is it that is making us feel anxious these days. So here's what some of the people said. It turns out that 43% of the people who responded to this survey said they're much more stressed out this year than they were last year. And that's an upward trend from the year before, when only 37% said 2023 was worse than 2022, and 32% had said that in 2 years before. So it keeps on going up. We feel like we're more stressed out than we were before. So the data shows that lots of people are stressed out. Do you think that rings true for you? So what is stressing us out in general? What do you think might be stressing us out? What are some things that come to your mind?
The economy, crisis.
Yep.
Political issues.
Right.
Rising violence.
Yes. Boom. You got it. Good job. You guys are like, would be great at a game show. Yeah, current events are generally on our mind. So most of us are thinking about the stuff that is going on around us. And just like you said, in order, you said the economy, politics, and violence. Yeah. I had wondered since this poll was done in April, whether people were equally concerned about the election, but I think probably they could be, right? Yeah, and gun violence has been on everybody's mind. So has the economy. So this seems to ring true for you. Is there anything that maybe got left off of this list that feels like it should be right there?
I think the degradation of the family.
Okay.
Erosion of family values and
Yeah.
the whole structure.
Yeah. Other things that keep you awake?
The future of our children.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is actually correct, but I know that what keeps me up is the stresses and the worries of others.
Yeah.
It's like it falls on you and it affects us.
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat these good responses that we just got from the audience so that they can hear on Zoom. The degradation of the family and family values. That's a big concern for a lot of people. The future of our children is a big concern, and education as well. And then you said the well-being of others. We can feel it. It's almost contagious. Is that the sense you mean? Yeah. Yeah. These things weigh on us. So there are lifestyle factors that also impact our mental health. Our stress levels in general. I am so stressed out. That tends to weigh on our mental health and make us feel less healthy overall. And also our sleep patterns. We aren't getting as much sleep as we need to. I was just at John Andrews' presentation in the last workshop, and it was fascinating how much he was talking about social and digital media and how we have a hard time turning it off. And even the blue lights from our phones can keep us awake because the blue light imitates sunshine, and it tells our pineal gland in our brain that it's daytime. It's not time to go to sleep yet. Don't fall asleep. And so that's why we need to turn off our phones a good amount of time before we go to bed. Otherwise, we're going to be up like it's the middle of the day. So people aren't getting enough sleep, and sleep is so important for our mental health. We need to get good sleep in order to be mentally healthy. And also, social connection is a major issue. This is even more true for younger adults than it is for older adults. If we don't have enough social connection, we suffer mental health-wise. So it turns out that when all these Americans were polled, how many of you actually sought out therapy for these issues since, you're struggling? And only less than a quarter of them said that they did. And among that number, the younger ones, the 18-year-olds to the 34-year-olds, so people under 35, were twice as likely than the older folks to go see therapy. So people who are over 35, like 10%, right, are seeking help, if that. So why are we so anxious? One interpretation from the American Psychiatric Association was that we get constant notification of things that are going on in the world globally. We know what's going on in Gaza. We know what's going on in the Ukraine in ways that maybe we couldn't have been aware of 100 years ago. We know everything that's going on locally in terms of our turmoil. There's the term doom scrolling, right? We can scroll and scroll and scroll, being aware of some of the tough things that are happening. So increased awareness, being always plugged in, probably keeps us a little bit more anxious. Does that sound true for you? And then we also have an increased awareness of mental health issues. People are talking about anxiety on TikTok all the time. And so not only are we just constantly aware of what's going on, we're also constantly aware of, I'm not doing very well. And so people are actually reporting, I'm anxious, I'm having a hard time. So that's how the president of the American Psychiatric Association interpreted these results. So what about your stressometer, if we were gonna take a look at it, yours personally? Where do you think that you are with your stress and anxiety? I wonder if we put it on a little continuum, a stress continuum, where would you be? Would you feel like you're barely surviving, barely hanging on? Maybe even feel like you don't want to be here doing this anymore? Versus absolutely thriving, right? On top of the world, managing everything and loving it. There's a lot of variation in that scale.
Well, after having a big burrito, I'm struggling.
That burrito was so good for lunch. Yeah, some of us are struggling to stay awake. I won't hold it against you if you start to get sleepy. Uh-huh.
Do you find that people of faith are more with doing okay and thriving versus people
Well, what I will say is that our worldview, even in secular terms, and you asked the question, do people of faith fare better than people who are secular with regard to this? Well, the American Psychiatric Association didn't use those words, but it turns out that people's worldview really matters in how they cope. And that's how the secular people talked about it. Where I think faith and religion, our spirituality, I think that that could be a real resource. It can add a lot of complicated questions too. So it's not completely 100% positive. I think it can be very helpful. But faith also leaves us with challenging questions like, why did God let that happen to me? Why did I get traumatized if God is all loving and cares about me and is in power of everything? You know, so it can lead to difficult questions, but it can also be a resource. So where do you think you are? So I don't know, maybe we can turn to our neighbors and our little tables. If we make little groups, would you feel comfortable talking about what are 3 of your biggest stressors? Maybe we'll just start with that first question. What are 3 of your biggest stressors if you guys circle up with the people around you? Yeah, go for it. Yeah, small group time.
Finances are a big stressor, and just I don't know if it's looking for specific things, but it's like finances, those are my resources.
Okay. Let me give you just a minute to wrap up. And if you didn't get a chance to share yours, make a mental note. Okay. All right. So do we feel like sharing in a larger group? Those of you who feel like you want to share in a wider group, you all are so talkative. Things are really happening in the world, right? So what are some things that are stressing you guys out? Anybody want to share? What was talked about in your groups?
Physical health.
Yeah, physical health.
Financial health.
Yeah, finances. Yeah.
Aging and trying to age gracefully.
Aging. Yeah, that's one. You only get out of that one way, and aging is better than that, right? What else?
Relationships with our husbands.
Yeah.
They don't understand that we come to church and they don't understand that we are trying to do a ministry and they're always criticizing us and humiliating us. So we need to stay quiet and not say anything because that's how God, wants us to be.
So relationship struggles. Always relationship struggles, right? With significant others and other important people in our lives. Yeah. What else?
In our group, we talk about the social media because the
Yeah.
kids, for example, or the family, even the old ones, they keep on holding their phone and there's no more interaction among members of the family.
Right.
Shut off all the communication. So that's really the main thing.
Yeah, so lack of presence because of social media. You don't feel their attention at home anymore, especially with the kids. Other things? Even the older ones, right? Uh-huh.
Did you mention work?
Work? Yeah. How about work?
Lack of work.
And lack of work? Yes. Money, right? Uh-huh.
So, social acceptance of what is being put on us.
Oh.
To have things that are very against perhaps our beliefs, but it's so mainstream that it's forcing it down. We're adults, we can make decisions, but our children, and
So
that indoctrination of things that and making it just so mainstream, so acceptable.
So,
Like you're wrong if you believe that that's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're the bad guy.
is it fair to call that peer pressure on a really intense level? Expectations, almost a demand that this is normal, and maybe your worldview or your faith beliefs.
It's old-fashioned.
It's old-fashioned.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a lot. Other things on your mind?
What I said is to take care of the grandkids.
The grandkids, taking care of the babies.
Sometimes they rely too much on.
So taking care of the little people in our lives.
And for me, it's like I don't want to get disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that I have to be there.
Yeah. Don't disappoint the kids. Yeah, I hear you. That's a lot of pressure.
She said the heat. And
Oh.
Locked up inside, and
Yeah.
you know, and the availability of food and
Mm-hmm.
going out and traffic and
Traffic conditions.
with the heat, if something were to
Yeah.
breaks down or.
Right. Heat, some of us think in terms of global warming, climate change, but even just the very reality of it's too hot today. What if the car breaks down? Do I have enough water? Even things like that. Yeah?
Or you can think, well, right now I'm cool because I have the AC on, but when I get the bill.
Right.
That'll get hot again.
Yeah. So the electricity bills because of air conditioning, if you're lucky enough to have air conditioning, right? Okay, what about your 3 greatest resources? Did you have a chance to talk about that with all the worries going on? Prayer. What else? Exercise. Yeah, exercise again. Glass of wine, did I hear that?
TV.
Okay, peace and quiet, no TV? Your support group, your friends, your community.
We have a group.
Gardening.
Yeah.
Those are good resources. Yeah, faith? Mm-hmm. Yeah, friends and family. How has your faith or worldview impact your stress coping? Tremendously?
Yes.
How so? What helps?
Having a heavenly perspective.
Yeah. Knowing there's a heavenly perspective. We have a benevolent Father.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
And knowing that there are certain things that you cannot control.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, you can't control it.
Yeah.
So you control the ones that you can do what you can do within your own human power and leave the rest to Him.
Yeah.
He will take care of it.
You know that you're not in control, so you can leave it to God to help you. Other things?
You know, if you have a worldview of the world that's in turmoil, it's kind of like a seesaw, but then you have faith, so it brings you up, and then if something else happens, so you're going up and down. But faith always raises you up.
Okay. So the challenges of the world can feel like it is a downswing, but then you remember that God is in control and it uplifts you.
It helps us to come out of that.
Mhm.
There's going to be light at the end of the tunnel type of thing.
But life is a wild ride then, isn't it? Uh-huh. Even life of faith, right?
And just acceptance of what you can control.
Yeah.
You can't control everything, so
What-
just accept what you can control.
Knowing that there are limits of what you can control and that you don't have to control it and you can accept that you have limits and that actually feels good.
Embrace change.
Embrace change. Yeah.
Surrender.
Surrender. Oh, those are good words.
So in the Mass, we have the prayer of the faithful.
Yeah, prayer of the
That
faithful.
helps us bring all our needs and
Yeah.
petitions together, and not only locally but also
Globally.
so that
Mhm.
it's in there. So that we're accustomed to a connectedness through the Mass and the prayer of the faithful, right?
Yeah.
And through communion. So
Yeah.
I think that's a powerful.
Yeah. Knowing that we're the global church and that we hold each other's prayers on a regular basis.
And we're Catholic. Catholic actually means universal.
Yeah, that's right. The Holy
One
Catholic
verse,
Church.
right?
Yeah. Yep. We're all together in this. Well, that helps, doesn't it? So what is resilience? Well, the American Psychological Association says that resilience is successful adaptation to life's challenges. And that's especially through the way that we behave, our emotions, and our mental adjustment, and our ability to be flexible to whatever our demands are, whether they come from internal places or external places. That those of us who are able to succeed in making changes by the way we behave or feel or act, that's what resilience is. So what is it that helps promote resilience according to the American Psychological Association? Well, APA says that resilience is actually a set of skills or behaviors that we can learn and practice. And that's good news. It's not just like some people are naturally bouncers back and others aren't. There are skills and behaviors that can help us nurture our resilience, is what they say. And coping strategies can be cultivated, kind of like what we heard in our morning lecture. I bet cultivate is also related to culture, right? To till the soil and to till the soul to some extent. Research suggests that our worldview matters, and that includes our faith. And that our social resources and connections matter. We have to have friends. It's good to have family and family of faith. So these things are important. Coping strategies, worldview, social resources. Even the secular folks acknowledge, oh, those are good. That's going to help us bounce back when stuff gets hard. What happens when we're stressed out? Well, in the face of demands, when we experience stress, there's actually a neurological mechanism that takes over, and we experience a flood of stress hormones, adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol. I recently got my blood drawn for a different reason, and my doctor said, wow, your cortisol levels are so low. And I told him, I could have told him I have Jesus, but what I said to him is, my dog had puppies, so I have this litter of puppies that I come home to every day, and they just, are so happy to see me, and they all want to lick my face. And their cuteness, I think there's no way to be stressed out when you're holding a little puffball. So, yeah, when he said, you have such low cortisol, I said, I have puppies. I could have also said, I have Jesus, but next time. So what is the neurology of our stress response? It turns out that our bodies are dictated by an autonomic nervous system, if you've heard of that. Autonomic just means automatic, right? And we have in our autonomic nervous system a sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system. A sympathetic nervous system is what gets activated when we're stressed. It's called sympathetic because it's affected by our feelings. It matters how we feel. So that's also what we call the fight or flight system, the sympathetic nervous system. We also can freeze. Some of us freeze in the response of danger, like a deer. So what's going on in our brains is that we have this structure called an amygdala that is right there where that little heart is. And the amygdala is part of the limbic system, which is called the so-called emotional brain. And we need an amygdala. It actually helps us stay alive. It's responsible for our natural ability to be afraid of things, and that's useful. We want to be able to be afraid of things that are bad for us. It creates a natural aversion. It's also responsible for aggression if we're going to have to fight. So it's responsible for both fight and flight. And it tends to pair events really well. So it's involved in kind of creating phobias or fears because it pairs things. This happened right before the bad thing happened. When that big flash of lightning lit up the sky, I jumped because I knew the thunder was coming. Our amygdala is the thing that pairs things. And just for fun, amygdala comes from the Greek word, from the Septuagint for almond, because it's a little almond shape. Yeah. So our sympathetic nervous system is responsible for fight or flight, and it's really useful when we're in survival mode. There's this one woman who doesn't have an amygdala. For whatever reason, it turned to stone for her. She had a very rare disease that made her amygdala go away. She is unable to feel fear, and so she has to process everything logically, which is sometimes dangerous. If you have a car coming at you really fast, to calculate, I better move over 2 feet because that car is coming at me at 60 miles per hour. Thank God she's still living, but an amygdala is really helpful to just say, whoa, you have an emotional response and it gets you out of danger's way, right? It can be very helpful to have it when we need it, but when it's too much, it's not good for us. So when there's an emergency or urgencies that are going on that really require our attention, it's not the time for our rest and digest nervous system response. That's the parasympathetic response. We need to have when we're in a dangerous situation, we need to have that sympathetic nervous system response. The parasympathetic nervous system is what I call rest and reserve instead of fight or flight. And it's really responsible for our ability to play, to form attachments, to nurture our young, to enjoy life and love, and to be free-spirited. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. Sometimes stress can be helpful, right? Have you ever noticed, maybe when you were a kid, if there was a test at school and you weren't worried about it at all, or you didn't take it seriously, you maybe didn't score very well because you didn't study. Stress maybe urged you to go ahead and study because it's a hard topic. And if you had just enough stress to get you motivated to study, you might do well on it. If you were way too stressed out to even concentrate, you're going to bomb the test because it made you too anxious. There's a law called the Yerkes-Dodson law that says stress and performance have a U-shaped relationship. You need a little bit of it to respond well, but if you have too much of it, you're going to be frazzled. So there's a curvilinear U-shaped, inverted U-shaped relationship between stress and performance. A little stress is good. A lot of stress is not so good. So when the stressors never end, when it's not actually productive anymore to have as much stress as we have, the alarm bells never stop ringing, we can become desensitized, derealized, or depersonalized, feel like we're not even real anymore. We're overstimulated. We can almost dissociate and check out because it's just way too much. We can feel completely emotionally overwhelmed. We can get compassion fatigue. We can get burned out. It's not useful anymore to be that stressed out. So when we are way stressed out and we're always in fight or flight, we should also be on the lookout for burnout, right? Have you ever known anybody who experienced burnout, or maybe you've experienced it yourself? Burnout can include feeling just emotionally depleted. You're exhausted. You have nothing else to give. You might even become cynical. Even a really caring person might start to think negative thoughts about people all the time, maybe a little bit bitter. And you're just not as productive as you used to be. That can be a sign, those three things together can be signs of burnout. We need rest. Even the American Psychological and, well, that was the American Psychiatric Association, who said sleep is getting in the way of our ability to have good mental health. It turns out that our rest ethic is just as important as a work ethic. We need to be able to get good rest. How many of you feel like you get enough rest? How many of you got 9 hours of sleep last night? None of you. 9? I heard someone say 9. What's that?
As we get older, we sleep less.
Oh, it's true. As we get older, we feel like we need less sleep. Our sleep patterns change as we get older too. So are we feeling like we need more rest in our lives? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods. So it turns out that difficulty getting rest and sleep seem to be contributing to mental health issues overall. And there are particular mental health disorders in particular where sleep is really important. Like if we have bipolar disorder and a chemical imbalance in our brain, if we have that particular predisposition, sleep is really important. If we don't get enough sleep, it can tip us into either a depressive episode or a manic episode, and it can be difficult. But sleep is good for all of us. We really need it. It may be that sleep is part of what happens during sleep is that our brain is taking the trash out of the metabolic byproducts of thinking and processing all day long. And it could be that we need sleep for our brain health to fight against things like Alzheimer's. So it turns out that we need to find an optimal window between our sympathetic nervous system and a parasympathetic nervous system, given Yerkes Dodson law. So we need to find a good balance of stress and rest. So from clinical practice with people who come in to talk about their stressors, there are 3 ways that I've found are really important for coping that also kind of mirror some of what the APA found. We can cope from the bottom up, which is maybe more bodily somatic related coping strategies. We can cope from the top down, a way that makes us feel like we have clarity and our worldview can inform that. And then we also have coping that is side to side, our social connections, how we are related to each other. And I would say with the top down, I would also include faith, that we know that God is with us. We'll talk about that. Some coping from the bottom up. Our body influences our mind. And that is related to neurology. We actually have a nerve that runs from our brain down to our gut, called the cranial nerve number 10. It's the vagus nerve. And it actually tells our brain tells our gut what to feel, and our gut tells our brain what to feel. So there's a gut-brain connection that's really important. A strong body-mind connection. It turns out that even Jesus' word for compassion, when he felt compassion for others, the Greek word for that was esplachniste, which is he feels it in his spleen. He feels it in his guts for people. That's literally what Jesus' compassion meant in Greek.
Where did the gut feeling came from?
You know, sometimes I think we're so wise. You said, is that where the term, like, our gut feeling comes from something? I think we are intuitively so smart that I think that we've picked up on that. Yeah, I think we've picked up on that, and it came out in our language. So our soma, or our body, impacts our psyche. So we talked earlier about the way that we breathe. When we exhale, especially on the exhale, that activates our parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and reserve. It's important to breathe in. We always have to breathe in, you know, but the breathing out, that long breath out, lets us know that it's okay. And you know, we also picked up on the expression, I can exhale now. I think on some level we know. The parasympathetic nervous system gets activated when we breathe out. Our word, ruach, for spirit in Hebrew, ruach, the Holy Spirit, and pneuma in Greek, both of those mean spirit, but they also mean breath. Both of them do. And I'm reminded that there's a tradition of breath prayer within our faith heritage. So exhaling activities are good for our parasympathetic nervous system. It deactivates our fight or flight, and reactivates our rest and reserve. So I mentioned the parasympathetic nervous system before. That helps enable things like our ability to play, to be creative, to reserve our energy, to be able to bond with people, and to nurture. Those things are really hard to do when you're really stressed out or scared for your life, right? So having a bottom-up response of just remembering we're in a body, it's okay for us to breathe, is important. Mindful movement. This morning when we started out together, we were invited to enter into all those fun stretches. That was great. Mindful movement is really good for us, and that's one coping strategy. It's why we did that together today. Soma care. Soma is the word for body. Caring for our body, knowing that our skin has limits. I don't have to be all things. I don't have to be in control. There are limits to what I am. It's good to remember that we have limits, and our skin reminds us of that. So being able to acknowledge my body gets to have limits. I get to have limits. So it is a gift to have limits, and that's really important. Touch. Touch is really important, literally to reach out for our loved ones. Honestly, when I was talking about, I have puppies, it is really delightful to be able to hold the little puppies, and they have so much fur, they're little balls of fluff. The act of petting my little dogs is really good. Being able to touch and just feel like, oh, I love this little ball of fur. It's really good for us to be able to give and to receive care and caresses from the humans that we love, from the pets that we love. It's good. It's good for us. What about the top down? Now, if we move away from our amygdala, the little almond, and we go to our frontal lobe, our frontal cortex is where we make meaning. And our prefrontal cortex is the most sophisticated aspect of being human. In some ways, I wonder if God specially blessed our prefrontal cortices as part of the Imago Dei, right? You are especially special. Our frontal lobe helps us interpret what's going on around us. It helps us make meaning. It helps us plan ahead. It's responsible for our executive functioning, if you've heard of that. It helps us make predictions, and it helps give order and meaning to all of our life's experiences. So our frontal lobes are our meaning maker. And so when I talk about being top down, I'm thinking about how do we use our frontal lobes and our awareness to help us make sense of what we're going through, and how does that help us cope? So our top-down influences are how our psyche informs our soma. Our mind informs our body. So our human prefrontal cortex is so beautiful. It may be part of what God specially blessed when he made us in his own image. Our prefrontal cortex seeks understanding. It seeks knowing what's going on around us. It seeks predictability. And it seeks a sense of control in just understanding what's going on. It helps if we know and can interpret meaningfully what's happening to us. And that helps us have a sense of security in the world and safety. Also, a sense of trust. You know, I can know what's coming. And trust and faith have a relationship, right? The word for trust and faith are the same word in the New Testament Greek. Pistis, I trust. Faith, our faith, gives us security, and it gives us comfort, and it orients us, right? Our worldview can help us cope. It's good for us to have some predictability and control when things feel like they're going crazy, right? So it's good to be able to create a structure for yourself and for your day when you just feel overwhelmed, especially in uncertain times. We came through incredibly uncertain times with the pandemic. So if you're going through chaos, calendar it, right? Establish your own routines. If things are going completely haywire for you, know that, well, I don't know what's going to happen today, but I know at 5 o'clock I'm going to meet my friend Bob and we're going to talk about it over coffee. Calendar. Make your world as predictable as you can. Try to have a consistent wake up and bedtime. That helps with sleep too. Make sure that you have, I put lunch with friends over Zoom in times of the pandemic, but meet with people, meet with connections, schedule stuff. Schedule coffee dates as an everyday thing. And plan play daily as much as you can, even if it's just 5 minutes. Taking the dog out for a walk, whatever. Plan something where you can have a little bit of play in every day. And try to go outside and move your body. Put your phone down, right? Not you. I wasn't looking at you when I said that. You were taking a picture of this. Sorry. I mean, just generally, we should put our phones down. I mean, we should all put our phones down and go outside and play. And schedule an end to your work. And I really wanted to emphasize this, especially in times of having a home office, if we were working from home because we couldn't go to the office. Like for some of us, our bedrooms became our office, right? So try to set limits where you can, even if that's like, you know what, it's 5 p.m. and my workday is over. I know that call came in at 5:05 and I could take it. I'm going to let it go to voicemail because my day's over. And sometimes it's really good to have decompression rituals. Do you remember Mr. Rogers, who was also Reverend Rogers? He was a Presbyterian minister. He used to take off his fancy shoes and put on his little tennis shoes, and he used to take off his sports coat and put on his cardigan that his mom made him. And it would signal, this is playtime, this is downtime. We all need those little decompression rituals, whether that's driving home after a day's work and listening to the radio or whatever, but doing something that reminds you, my day is over, I can shake it off. Decompression rituals can be really helpful. Allow yourself to feel. I went and I did a word study of a lot of places where it talked about Jesus' emotions. And some of the Greek really pulls for the intensity of what Jesus felt in some ways that I think English kind of moves past it a little bit too much. Jesus wept bitterly. He rejoiced. He was overwhelmed by grief. He was angry and distressed. He was troubled. He was sorrowful. He was moved by compassion. He felt it in his guts, is what it says, right? So it's very colorful language. He did shed tears. He was amazed and he was afflicted. All this to say, sometimes I think people think of Jesus wrongly as stoic. Jesus was not a stoic person. Stoics used to talk about the benefit of being tranquil, of being untroubled. Jesus was troubled. He let himself be troubled because he loved that much. So all that to say is, when you're feeling stressed, let yourself feel. Jesus felt deeply. There are no feelings that are unacceptable. There are unacceptable behaviors, but there aren't unacceptable feelings. So you notice the feeling, you acknowledge that it exists, and it has its own valid reasons, and you can let it go. And then side-to-side care. We need each other. We need relationships to help us through our stress. We really shouldn't be going through our whole life alone. It's not good for people to be alone. That was one of the first things that God said about human relationship. It's not good. It's lo tov in the Hebrew, to be on your own, versus when he made humans, he was like, oh, this is tov. This is good stuff. What's interesting to me is that God said to Adam that it's not good for humans to be alone when God was with Adam. I thought that was fascinating. So God is specifically saying, you need another one. You need a person. Even when God was present with Adam, he said that. So we need human relationships. We need secure attachments, just as we also need God. And that reminds me of the reciprocity, the three-part reciprocity of the great commandments. Love God, love neighbor, love self. It's all important. Oh, are you taking a picture? Okay, got it. Okay. So there are times when we need to seek care and counsel for ourselves that are, beyond what we can get just from having coffee with our friends. Sometimes we have personal, relational, or health issues. Even those of us who lead the church can experience some of that. And so part of our nurturing ourselves and maintaining our sense of wholeness comes from being connected to others, sometimes in a professional way. But in a non-professional way, who have been the people that have been a connection for you? Who do you regularly give and receive counsel to and from? Who are your people? Spouses? Sometimes? Priests, yep. Friends, gotta have them. Children. Mm-hmm. Who's there for you? Who?
Mental health.
Mental health, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Parents, yeah. If you, and siblings. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you guys are connected. It sounds like you're connected. Yeah. Okay. And then, yeah, if we need mental health, the word for healing in the New Testament, I loved finding this out. When Jesus would heal someone, he would therapein them. He therapied them. Our word for healing, our word for therapy comes from the word that Jesus used for healing. So sometimes we have to seek healing on a clinical level for our distress, and there's no shame in that. When stress starts to overwhelm us and starts to affect our relationships or our work, it's okay to reach out for help. Yeah, it's okay to reach out for healing. Sometimes we all need it. I think the church is getting better about understanding that therapy is necessary, right? Oh, yeah. There's even that mug, right? We need Jesus and a therapist, right? Okay. Thoughts about this? How are we doing for time? Did we just swim by that?
Yeah, we still have like 5 minutes.
We've got 5 minutes? Okay, well, let's talk about it. What are some thoughts that you guys have about all this? How do you think the church is doing with regard to embracing therapy widely?
I just, in my prior workshop about what the diocese here is doing, if I heard right, Alma.
Oh.
Going out to the parishes because of, the stress, the suicides, and the mental illness. So what the diocese is doing in that, I see it so positive.
Oh, how wonderful. So the diocese is making a really powerful, positive impact on mental health and suicidality.
Yes. So I just heard, I had heard about it, but.
And it's called Alma?
Fantastic.
Fantastic.
We're not alone in this.
You're not alone.
There's help out there, and it's okay.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad the diocese makes that really clear that it's okay to get help. Yeah.
For the Asian Pacific.
Asian Pacific.
Islander population,
Mm-hmm.
the mental health is viewed with stigma.
Yeah.
So they would rather not consult or bring this case in the open and treat this as an internal family.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's why there's a increasing number of cases of depression.
Oh, okay.
And leading to possible suicide.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying the AAPI population, there tends to be more stigma around going to therapy, and so they try to keep things within the family and not talk about it too widely, and that might be contributing to increasing depression and suicide. Okay.
I think that's true with Hispanic culture.
Also true with Latinas and Latinos?
With, you know, first generation or, you know, people that are immigrants. That don't, one, they don't have the resources to reach out
Go to
somebody.
therapy, right.
And two, there's a stigma attached to it.
Right. Yeah.
If
So
your child, if there's something wrong with your child, then that means something's wrong with me.
Uh-oh.
Or judgment on your childbearing.
Okay. So you're talking about in the Latinx culture there can be stigma if there's something wrong, and then also not having the resources if you're first generation to be able to access professional mental health, and then it can feel like stigma or judgment upon you if you're having an issue or if someone in your family is having an issue. Oh, so that makes people have to suffer by themselves.
One other thing, that, and Pam, I'm sure can attest to this as well. Working with juveniles.
Juveniles, yeah.
When you're being raised by a grandparent, we have that generational gap. That you're not able to understand them as a grandparent. They're not able to understand you because there's such a generational gap.
Okay, so.
And so that child or that inside child, how can they be healed if there's nobody there to understand what they're going through?
Okay, so you're talking about being raised by grandparents, and when there's such a big generational gap, there can be a hard time feeling the support.
And the generational gap is concerned with the culture, the way of life they were brought up, or that they grew up in a different environment.
That it was so different for the grandparents when they grew up that it's hard to understand what's going on with this young person. Yeah. Other thoughts?
I think one thing is there are a lot of psychologists out there, but there's not a lot of Catholic psychologists, and that's a problem because if you go out there to see somebody,
they're not gonna
have the same view that we have through our doctrines. Our so that's hard too, because they might be telling you to do something that goes against you. For example, divorce.
Right.
You know, go through it.
Right.
Get divorce, you know, kind of a counsel, and that you know that's wrong. And
so
you don't want that. So
you bring up a really good point about finding a therapist who's going to respect your faith and respect your worldview and not psychopathologize you for having the beliefs that you do or the values that they do. Right. So you're not just going to say to them, oh, divorce that guy. Oh, leave him. Because they need to understand that for you, divorce is off the table, right? So finding you're saying a Catholic therapist would be really important to you. I used to keep a database of, because I work with clergy a lot, a lot of Protestant clergy, and they need therapists who understand their issues. I haven't necessarily kept a database specifically for Catholic therapists, but I think your point is exactly why I started to keep track of who in the country understands people of faith who are living out their ministry, and Jesus is the most central thing to them, and the therapist is not going to psychopathologize that. So I definitely kept a database. I think there's really good merit to what you're saying of finding the Catholic, maybe Christian Protestant therapists who are really going to understand, respect, and value your faith.
Now, one good thing is that I came to the other paper also, and we do have a Catholic, I don't know what her title is, and she gave some talk also, and she is a therapist. She's a psychologist.
That's great.
And she belongs to our diocese, so at least we do have somebody to go to.
Yeah.
And she did offer, her services to all of us.
And it is true that therapists are supposed to be trained to hold people's worldview with care, But if you find that you have a therapist that you feel like doesn't understand you and you try to make it clear to them, it's okay to find another therapist. Be selective about that. Yeah. All right. Do you have another thought?
You know, I'm looking at the value of the mental health professionals.
Yeah.
Or the therapies.
Yeah.
For people who haven't experienced to be on the receiving end.
Yeah.
They would hardly know the importance or the benefits that you can get out of this interaction.
Yeah, that it can be powerful.
Just from my experience, it's really very uplifting because it gives you a lot of information, a lot of options that you can get from.
Yeah, you found therapy useful for that. Did I miss another thought over here? No? No? Okay. All right.
I think San Bernardino's, like the diocese here, is very special, like in terms of just catering or just being sensitive.
Yeah.
Trauma sensitive.
Trauma sensitive diocese.
Health issues.
But good for it.
I do, like, and everything I do is trauma-informed ministry, right? Across everything I do. As a person who uses ministry, as a person who's involved with ministry, what I will say is that there's a hierarchy. There are certain types of things that community is much more comfortable dealing with than other things. And it's great if you fall into the deserving or the comfortable quality person. But I do think that there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of some of the more challenging, in terms of the stigmas that are associated around it, whether it's around gender or just socioeconomic status or type of trauma. And the one thing is I've been involved with a lot of ministry in the Protestant world, which seems to be light years ahead of the Catholic world, in my opinion, in terms of trauma-informed ministry. And I don't know how this is addressed, but one of the things that I would like to see is pastors become more comfortable when it comes to dealing with trauma stuff. They are, in fact, supposed to be pastors, and it seems a lot of them are very uncomfortable with doing anything beyond the sacramental.
Okay, so you're saying that it would be great if pastors become more trauma-informed.
At least sensitive.
Sensitive.
Just to understand, right? And whether it's an openness to interacting with the ministries that do exist, or being an onboarding opportunity to get people to the right things.
To make good referrals.
So, which is, and I think that there's some great ministry happening in San Bernardino, phenomenal. And however, there is a disconnect and there's almost a fear. As someone who's involved with these ministries, getting them linked up and promoted within parish life has been extremely difficult for some things.
Okay.
I feel like that's the next step.
So more connections to be made with the diocese and psychology.
The bottleneck.
Okay, and the pastors are gatekeepers and bottleneck. Okay, I hear you. Well, and again, the diocese is to be commended for the work that it is doing, because it seems really special from my perspective. So lovely to talk with you all. Thank you for being here.